The Korean Mafia boss trapped me in a hospital supply room, his men blocking the door while he pressed a knife under my chin and said one thing: "You belong to me now." I was a black African nurse with no passport, no family, and no way out. In a foreign country where fear is law, nobody looked at me twice. He took me because he thought I was powerless. That was his first mistake. What he didn't know was that forcing me into his world wouldn't break me. It would teach me how his empire worked from the inside. This isn't a love story. It's about captivity, patience, and what happens when a man creates the very weapon that destroys him. By the end of this story, one of us is dead, and the survivor is far more dangerous than he ever was. Before the story continues, let me say this. If you're still here right now, it means this story touched you. And Love and Tension is built for people like you, people who feel deeply, who believe love should hurt, heal, and change lives. More than 99% of viewers watch but never subscribe. That means every time you enjoy a story like this, there's a chance you'll never see the next one. So if these stories comfort you, entertain you, or make you feel understood, please subscribe. It's free, but it means everything to this channel. Now, let's continue. The blade was cold. That's what I remember most. Not the fear, not the shock, but the temperature of steel against my throat in a storage room that smelled of antiseptic and rust. Junwoo's face was carved from marble and cruelty. His suit was pristine, despite the blood spatters on his shoes. Someone else's blood, I would learn. His men had carried their boss through the emergency entrance an hour ago. A bullet lodged in his shoulder, and I'd been the unlucky nurse on duty. "You saw nothing," he'd said, after I'd extracted the bullet with steady hands that surprised even me. I'd nodded. I'd planned to forget. But Junwoo didn't believe in chances. "You're Ugandan," he said, not asked. His Korean was flawless, but he spoke to me in English, each word measured. "You have no work visa, no family in Seoul. Your residency permit expired 4 months ago." My blood turned to ice. I'd been so careful, so invisible. How did you... "I own 3 immigration officers, 2 hospital administrators, and the landlord of your building." He tilted his head, studying me like a specimen. "You're perfect." Perfect for what? His smile was a surgical incision. For belonging to me. They took me that night. Not violently. Junwoo was too sophisticated for that. His men simply waited outside my apartment building until my shift ended at midnight. One of them, a man with a shaved head and dead eyes, held up my passport, my real passport, the one I'd hidden in a locked drawer. "Boss wants to talk," he said in broken English. I knew what happened to foreign women who disappeared in Seoul's underbelly. I knew what happened to nurses who saw too much. But I also knew I had no leverage, no rights, no protection. So I got in the car. Junwoo's compound was hidden behind a legitimate pharmaceutical distribution company in Gangnam. The building's lower levels processed legal medications. The upper levels processed something else entirely. His real empire, built on trafficking, extortion, and bodies that were never found. He kept me in a room on the 5th floor. Not a cell, that would have been honest. This was decorated like a hotel suite, complete with silk curtains and a bathroom with heated floors. A cage dressed as comfort. "You'll work for me now," Junwoo said that first night, standing in my doorway with 2 guards flanking him. "My men are stupid. They get hurt in stupid ways. You'll keep them alive. And if I refuse?" He pulled out his phone, showed me a video. It was my sister, Hadija, walking through the market in Kampala with her 2 young children. The timestamp was from that morning. "Accidents happen everywhere," Junwoo said softly. The phone disappeared into his pocket. The door closed. The lock turned. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the bed and counted the ways I'd failed. Failed to renew my papers. Failed to stay invisible. Failed to protect the only family I had left. By morning, I'd accepted the truth. I wasn't leaving this building alive unless Junwoo allowed it. So I would become indispensable. I would survive through competence. I would preserve whatever remained of my humanity until an opportunity appeared. That was my first lie to myself. The work began immediately. Junwoo's men were brutal and careless, an endless supply of stab wounds, bullet grazes, and shattered bones. They'd limp into my makeshift clinic, a converted office with medical supplies stolen from hospitals across Seoul, and I'd patch them together without anesthesia, without questions, without mercy. I told myself I was just doing my job, that healing was neutral, that my hands were clean because I never pulled the trigger. But I knew whose wounds I was closing. I knew these men left my table and returned to the streets to create more victims, more bleeding, more horror. Junwoo watched sometimes, standing in the corner with his arms crossed, his dark eyes tracking my every movement. He never spoke during procedures, but his presence was a constant weight, a reminder of who controlled my air, my food, my sister's safety. "You're good," Junwoo said one night after I'd saved a man from bleeding out from a severed femoral artery. "What happened to them?" I asked. They asked too many questions. The man on my table groaned. I gave him something for the pain, rationed carefully because Junwoo controlled the medication supply, and cleaned up in silence. "You don't ask questions," Junwoo observed. "Would it matter if I did?" His smile was almost approving. "No, but I like that you're smart enough to know that." He left. The lock turned. I washed blood from my hands and wondered how many more times I could lie to myself about neutrality. If you're watching this from somewhere in the world, drop a comment and let me know where you're tuning in from. And if this story has you on edge, hit that like button and subscribe to Love and Tension for more stories that'll keep you thinking long after they end. 3 weeks into captivity, the first test arrived. Junwoo brought me a man who wasn't one of his soldiers. This one was older, mid-50s, wearing an expensive watch and terror in his eyes. He'd been beaten, methodically, professionally, and his left hand was a mangled mess. "Fix him," Junwoo ordered. "He needs a hospital, possible fractures to here, now." I looked at the man's face. He was crying silently, his breath coming in short gasps. Junwoo stood with his arms crossed, waiting. "What did he do?" I asked. "Does it matter?" It shouldn't have. By my own rules, neutrality, survival, competence, it shouldn't have mattered at all. But asking felt like preserving something human in myself. Junwoo's expression didn't change. He stole from me. Now he pays with function, not life. "You'll make sure he lives, but that hand?" He gestured dismissively. "He doesn't need it perfect." I understood. This wasn't healing. This was calibrated punishment. I could have done it properly, saved more of the hand's function, minimized the damage. Instead, I did exactly what Junwoo wanted. Enough to keep the man alive, not enough to make him whole. The man sobbed as I worked. I told myself I had no choice. When I finished, Junwoo nodded once. "Good, you understand efficiency." That night I stared at my hands in the bathroom mirror. They were steady, clean, efficient. That's when I realized the cage wasn't just the room. It was becoming the person who could make that choice and sleep afterward. The pattern established itself. Junwoo's requests became routine. I treated his men. I treated his victims. I learned to distinguish between punishment and accident, between warning and execution. I became fluent in the language of violence, what a broken rib means versus a shattered kneecap, how to patch someone up just enough to survive interrogation, but not enough to run. Each task saved my life. Each task cost someone else something they'd never get back. And each task made the next one easier. "You're adapting well," Junwoo said one evening. He'd taken to visiting my room after difficult procedures, bringing expensive food I never asked for. Japanese takeout, Italian wine, French pastries, building what he probably thought was rapport. "I'm surviving," I corrected. "Same thing in my world." I ate the sushi he'd brought, why refuse when refusal gained nothing, and asked the question I'd been holding. Why me? You could have any doctor in Seoul with the right pressure. Korean doctors talk. They have families here, connections, leverage. He poured wine into 2 glasses, slid one toward me. You have nothing. You are nothing in this country. That makes you perfect. The wine was excellent. I hated that I noticed. You're not drinking, he observed. I don't trust things I don't pour myself. His laugh was genuine, surprised, smart. But if I wanted you dead, Amanda, you'd already be gone. He drank from both glasses, proving his point. I want you useful. There's a difference. I took the wine. It tasted like surrender dressed as sophistication. Tell me something, Junwoo said, leaning back. Do you hate me? I considered lying, but lies required energy, and I was learning to save my resources for battles that mattered. Yes. Good. Fear makes people sloppy. Hate makes them sharp. He stood, adjusted his cuffs. Keep hating me, Amanda. Just keep being useful while you do it. The door closed. The lock turned. I finished the wine and wondered when I'd stopped flinching at the sound. 2 months in, something shifted. I started predicting violence before it happened. The signs became obvious once you learned the pattern. Which men returned with certain injuries, which times of month the torture room got more use, how Junwoo's mood dictated the week's body count. One night, 3 men came in carrying a woman. She was Chinese, maybe 25, beaten badly enough that I knew interrogation had failed. Fix her, one man grunted. I assessed her quickly. Broken ribs, possible internal bleeding, severe trauma. She needs surgery, real surgery, in a hospital. Boss said fix her here. I looked at the woman's face. She was barely conscious, her breathing shallow. If I tried to treat her in this makeshift clinic, she'd probably die. If I refused, she'd definitely die, and I'd lose what little trust I'd built. Who's Junwoo? I asked. Busy. You have orders. Then he's going to lose his information source. She needs a hospital, and I need proper equipment. Tell him I said so. The men exchanged glances. No one contradicted Junwoo's orders. Or, I continued, my voice colder than I recognized, or you can explain to him why his expensive asset died because you were too stupid to get her proper treatment. They made the call. 15 minutes later, the woman was in a private ambulance to a hospital Junwoo controlled. She survived. I never learned her name or what information Junwoo extracted afterward. But Junwoo noticed. You overrode my men, Junwoo said the next morning. I saved your asset. You made a decision without my permission. I met his eyes. You want me useful. Sometimes useful means thinking. The silence stretched. Then Junwoo smiled. Not the surgical smile, but something almost genuine. My father built this empire by trusting no one. I maintained it the same way. He stepped closer, but perhaps that's why it hasn't grown. Perhaps I need people who think, not just obey. I'm not your person. I'm your prisoner. For now. He turned to leave, paused at the door. Next time you make a decision, you'll be right, or you'll join the people you're treating. Understand? Perfectly. The door closed, but this time he didn't lock it. The unlocked door was more terrifying than the cage. It meant Junwoo trusted that I understood my position well enough not to run. It meant he believed I'd internalized the system, that my sister's safety, my own survival, and simple pragmatism would keep me compliant without physical barriers. He was right, but what he didn't realize was that an unlocked door meant access, observation, information. I started moving through the building during downtime. Junwoo's men barely noticed me anymore. I was furniture, another tool in the operation. I learned the compound's rhythm, when shipments arrived, when meetings happened, which rooms were forbidden even to trusted soldiers. I learned that Junwoo controlled his empire through predictable paranoia. He trusted no one completely, which meant everyone reported on everyone else. His security wasn't just external, it was a web of mutual surveillance, where loyalty meant constant betrayal of peers. And I learned that he was lonely. He started visiting my room more frequently, always with some excuse, checking on supply levels, discussing a difficult case, bringing food. But the conversations stretched longer. He talked about his father, who'd built the empire and died violently when Junwoo was 19. About inheriting an empire he didn't want but couldn't refuse. People think power is freedom, he said one night, 3 months into my captivity. It's the opposite. Every decision creates enemies. Every weakness is death. Is that why you took me, I asked, to have one person who can't be an enemy? You already are an enemy. You just don't have weapons yet. The honesty surprised me. Then why tell me anything? He was quiet for a long moment. Because everyone else tells me what I want to hear. You tell me what I need to know, even when it costs you. I realized then that Junwoo was making the same mistake powerful men always make, confusing competence with loyalty, utility with affection, captivity with consent. He was showing me the architecture of his empire because he believed I had no way to use it against him. That was his second mistake. 4 months in, I executed my first independent decision. One of Junwoo's suppliers, a man who trafficked components for designer drugs, had been skimming product. Junwoo had ordered him brought in for discussion, which meant torture followed by disposal. But I'd been listening. I'd learned that this supplier had connections Junwoo needed for a major deal with a Japanese syndicate. Killing him would cost leverage. When the supplier arrived, already bleeding, already broken, I stabilized him, then went directly to Junwoo's office. His second-in-command, a vicious man named Tae-min, tried to stop me. Boss is in a meeting, then interrupted. You don't give orders here. I looked at him with the same expression I'd seen on Junwoo's face 100 times. The supplier you're planning to kill, he's worth more alive. If Junwoo finds out you cost him the Osaka deal because you were too territorial to let me speak, you'll be the one on my table next. Tae-min's jaw clenched, but he knocked on the door. Junwoo looked up from a table covered in maps and ledgers. His eyes narrowed. This better be critical. I explained, quickly and clearly. The supplier's connections, the Osaka timeline, the cost of replacing him versus the cost of controlled punishment. Junwoo listened without interrupting. When I finished, he stood and walked to the window. You're suggesting I show weakness by not killing him. I'm suggesting you show strength by strategic mercy. It's not about him. It's about everyone who watches what you do next. Another long silence. Then Junwoo turned to Tae-min. Break his hands. Both of them. Then send him home with a message. He works for half rate until the Osaka deal closes. After that, we renegotiate. Tae-min blinked. Boss, we've never... Now we have. Junwoo's gaze shifted to me. Amanda calculated the value correctly. Follow her assessment. When I returned to my room that night, I stared at my reflection and didn't recognize the woman looking back. She had made a decision that saved a man's life while ensuring his suffering. She had spoken the language of power fluently enough to be heard. She had stopped asking permission and started executing judgment. She was becoming efficient. The horror came later, in the dark, when I realized I hadn't felt guilty during the decision. I'd felt capable. Junwoo was right. I was becoming a weapon. I just wasn't his anymore. By month 5, Junwoo consulted me on more than medical issues. The shipment from Incheon, he said one evening, spreading photos across my table. 3 of my men say the count is correct, but the weight is wrong. What's your assessment? I studied the photos, containers, manifests, numbers that should have meant nothing to a nurse. But I'd been watching, listening, learning. I'd seen this pattern before. Someone's cutting the product with filler. Probably your distributor in Incheon. They're betting you won't check street-level quality because the count matches. Which men do I trust? I pointed to 2 names. These 2 have families. They're afraid of you. The third one, I tapped his photo. He's new. He's ambitious. He's probably taking a cut from the distributor. Junwoo made 2 calls. 3 days later, the third man disappeared. The distributor sent a replacement shipment with a profuse apology. Junwoo's profit margin increased. He never questioned how I knew. He simply started asking more often. I became his truth teller in an empire built on lies. While his men told him what he wanted to hear, I told him what his numbers meant, where his vulnerabilities were, which loyalties were performance. And slowly, imperceptibly, he began to need my judgment more than my medical skills. You should sit in on the negotiation tomorrow, he said one night. I'm not part of your organization. No, you're something better. You're objective. He poured whiskey. I'd graduated from wine to his private collection. My men have agendas. You have survival. That makes you the most honest person in this building. Honest about what? How to hurt people more efficiently? Honest about reality. He handed me a glass. Morality is expensive, Amanda. Reality is just mathematics. You've learned that faster than anyone I've met. I took the whiskey. I'd stopped refusing things months ago. Refusal was a luxury for people with choices. What happens when I stop being useful? I asked. Then you become expensive, he smiled. Don't stop being useful. The negotiation was with a Chinese trafficking network looking to establish roots through Seoul. Junwoo sat at the head of the table, projecting controlled violence. His lieutenants flanked him, weapons visible. I sat in the corner, supposedly taking medical notes, actually listening to everything. The Chinese leader was smooth, offering terms that sounded generous but weren't. Junwoo haggled, threatened, postured. Both sides performed their roles. But I saw what Junwoo's men didn't. The Chinese negotiator kept glancing at a specific lieutenant, a man who'd been with Junwoo for years. Tiny glances, barely perceptible, but consistent. After the Chinese delegation left, Junwoo dismissed everyone except me. Your assessment? I told him about the glances. His face remained impassive, but something deadly flickered in his eyes. Daijung has been with me since my father's time. Then maybe it's nothing, or maybe he's been with you so long he thinks he's earned the right to retire comfortably. Junwoo sat silent for 3 full minutes. Then, if you're wrong, you've destroyed a loyal man's reputation. If I'm right, I've saved your life. He stood, walked to the door, then turned. You're not surviving anymore, Amanda. You're ruling. I hope you understand what that means. I did. It meant I'd crossed a line I'd sworn I wouldn't. It meant I wasn't just treating wounds anymore. I was creating them. 3 days later, Daijung's body was found in the Han River. I never asked if I was right. Junwoo never told me. But he started calling me to more meetings, more decisions, more judgments that ended in blood. I told myself I was still a prisoner, that I had no choice, that survival required efficiency. All lies. The truth was simpler and more terrible. I was good at this. I understood the mathematics of cruelty. I could calculate the cost of mercy versus the profit of violence with the same steady hands that had once saved lives. Junwoo created me to serve him. He didn't realize I was learning to replace him. The end began with Junwoo's vulnerability. 7 months in, he made a mistake. Trusted a political connection who betrayed him to a rival organization. The attack came at dawn. Armed men, professional, targeting Junwoo's secondary compound where he'd been meeting suppliers. I was there. I'd been requested to attend in case medical intervention was needed. When the shooting started, Junwoo's men responded with practiced violence, but the attackers had better intelligence, better positions, better timing. Junwoo took a bullet to the abdomen. High caliber, close range, catastrophic bleeding. His men dragged him to the room where I'd set up supplies. 3 of them surrounded us, weapons drawn, watching windows and doors. Junwoo was conscious but fading, his blood soaking through his expensive suit. "Fix me," he gasped. I assessed quickly. The bullet had perforated his intestine, possibly nicked an artery. He needed surgery, real surgery, immediately. "You'll die if I treat you here," I said clearly. "Hospital, too exposed. Rivals will finish it." He was right. Moving him meant death. Treating him here might also mean death, but it was a chance. "I need complete authority," I said. "Your men follow my orders, not their instincts." Agreed? Junwoo's eyes found mine. In that moment, he understood what I was really asking. "Do you trust me with your life?" He nodded. I worked for 6 hours. It was brutal, improvised surgery with inadequate supplies and constant interruptions as gunfire echoed through the building. But Junwoo had trained me well. I'd learned efficiency under pressure, how to make impossible decisions with steady hands, how to value function over perfection. I saved his life. When he woke, feverish and weak, I was cleaning instruments. His men had relaxed their vigil, confident the boss would survive. After all, I'd proven my loyalty completely. I'd had every opportunity to let him die, and I'd saved him instead. "Thank you," Junwoo whispered. I looked at him, really looked at him. This man who'd stolen my freedom, threatened my family, forced me to become something monstrous. This man who'd inadvertently taught me exactly how his empire worked, where every vulnerability was, how every protocol functioned. This man who now trusted me completely because I'd had the chance to kill him and hadn't. "You're welcome," I said, but I was calculating. Recovery took 3 weeks. Junwoo was confined to the compound, unable to meet contacts or enforce presence. His empire ran on fear, and fear required visibility. He delegated more to me during those weeks. Not officially, I was still just the medical staff, but his lieutenants knew who had authority. When disputes arose, they came to me. When decisions needed making, I made them, and Junwoo approved them because I was always right. I was the voice of the king, while the king was weak. And I learned something critical. His men didn't love him. They feared him. Fear was his only currency, his only loyalty, his only control. Remove the fear, and the empire was just machinery waiting for an operator. I started making small changes. Nothing obvious. I approved expenditures Junwoo would have questioned. I settled disputes in ways that created new alliances among his men, reshuffling the power structure microscopically. I gathered the passwords, protocols, contacts, and networks that Junwoo had kept fragmented across his lieutenants. I consolidated information. I built redundancy. I made myself indispensable not just to Junwoo, but to the operation itself. And I waited for Junwoo to be strong enough that killing him wouldn't look like weakness. It happened on a Tuesday. Junwoo had recovered enough to leave the compound for a meeting with Japanese distributors, the Osaka deal that I'd helped preserve months ago. He was confident again, healthy, powerful. His men had relaxed into routine. He made one mistake. He brought only 3 guards instead of his usual 6. Efficiency, he called it. He was meeting allies, after all. I was there because Junwoo liked having me present for important negotiations. "You see things others miss," he'd said. High praise from a man who trusted no one. The meeting went well. The Japanese were satisfied with the product quality, the distribution routes, the profit margins. Everyone drank expensive whiskey. Everyone smiled. Everyone left richer. Junwoo was relaxed in the car on the way back. "You were right about keeping that supplier alive," he said. "Sometimes mercy is profitable. I taught you that," I said. "No, I taught you efficiency. You learned mercy on your own." He looked at me with something almost like warmth. "When this is over, when you've earned your freedom properly, what will you do?" "I haven't thought about it." "Liar. You think about everything." He was right. I thought about everything, including the sedative I'd mixed into his whiskey at the meeting, carefully dosed, using the same medications he'd forced me to ration for his wounded men. A sedative that would look like fatigue, like the aftermath of a serious injury, like nothing suspicious at all. Junwoo's eyes were already drooping. "Tired," he murmured. "You pushed yourself too hard today," I said gently. "Rest." His head fell back against the seat. The guards in the front didn't notice. Their boss falling asleep after a long day was normal. I waited until we were on the empty stretch of highway between Incheon and Seoul. Then I leaned forward and spoke to the driver in flawless Korean. "The boss wants to stop at the warehouse in Gwangmyeong. He has instructions." The driver glanced at his partner, then at Junwoo's sleeping form in the rearview mirror. "Boss didn't mention he's checking inventory personally. Do you want to wake him and confirm?" No one wanted to wake Junwoo unnecessarily. The driver took the exit. The Gwangmyeong warehouse was Junwoo's secondary facilities. Minimal staff, mostly storage. I'd arranged for the night shift to be absent tonight. A simple lie about schedule changes, delivered with Junwoo's authority that I'd borrowed so often it was effectively mine. When the car stopped, I said, "Help me bring him inside. He needs to lie down properly." The guards exchanged glances but obeyed. Junwoo had been wounded recently. Concern for his health was reasonable. They carried him into the warehouse office, laid him on a couch. I told them to wait outside. The boss would be embarrassed to wake up being watched. They hesitated but complied. I was the medical expert. I'd saved his life. I closed the door, locked it, drew the blinds. Junwoo woke 10 minutes later, groggy and confused. His hand went to his waist, empty. I'd taken his weapons while he slept. Amanda? Where to? The Gwangmyeong warehouse, I said. Sat across from him, hands folded. We need to talk. He tried to stand, swayed, sat back down heavily. What did you drug me? Yes. The confusion in his eyes cleared, replaced with calculation, then with the cold understanding of a predator recognizing another predator. I see, his voice said, steady despite the sedative. How long have you been planning this? Since you pressed a knife to my throat and told me I belonged to you, and yet you saved my life. Because you needed to trust me first, because your death had to look like an accident or your men would hunt me forever, because I needed to learn your empire from the inside before I could take it. I leaned forward. You taught me well, Jun-woo, efficiency, mathematics, the value of calculated mercy. He laughed. Actual genuine amusement mixed with something like pride. My father always said, never create a weapon you can't control. I should have listened. You couldn't help yourself. You were lonely. You wanted someone who saw you clearly. You got exactly what you asked for. So what now? You kill me and hope my men accept you? No. You kill yourself. I laid out the documentation I'd prepared over weeks. Emails showing Jun-woo's increasing paranoia and erratic behavior after his injury. Medical records I'd falsified indicating brain trauma from the bullet wound. Testimony from his men, carefully collected through casual conversations about his recent mood swings and unusual decisions. You've been unstable since the shooting, I explained. Everyone's noticed. Tonight, you came here alone, dismissed your guards, and ended things. I showed him the gun, his own gun, the one he'd carried for 10 years. One shot. They'll find you in the morning. Tragic, but not surprising. Brain injuries often cause delayed psychological effects. Jun-woo stared at the gun, then at me. You've thought about everything. You taught me that, I said. And if you refuse, scream for the guards, then I inject you with this. I held up a syringe. Potassium chloride. Heart attack. Natural looking. But you'll be conscious for the paralysis. It'll take 4 minutes. You'll suffocate slowly, unable to move or call for help. Then I'll shoot you anyway and claim I found you too late. I set both options on the table between us. You always gave me choices, Jun-woo. Now I'm giving you one. Die like a king who couldn't bear his own weakness, or die like a victim. Decide. The silence stretched. Outside, his guards waited patiently, trusting that their boss's trusted medical expert was taking care of him. Jun-woo picked up the gun, checked the chamber. Loaded, of course. Everything I did was efficient. You've become exactly what I needed you to be, he said softly. I just didn't realize you'd be so good at it. Goodbye, Jun-woo. He nodded slowly. Then he pressed the gun to his temple and pulled the trigger. The sound was muffled by the warehouse's thick walls. The guards outside didn't hear it. I waited exactly 90 seconds, the time it would take to realize something was wrong and try the locked door, before I started screaming. The investigation took 2 weeks. The conclusion was exactly what I'd designed. Jun-woo had struggled with psychological trauma from his injury, had been showing signs of instability, and had ended his own life in a moment of weakness. His lieutenants fought for control immediately. 3 small wars erupted within the organization. Tae-min tried to seize power, but made the mistake of moving too aggressively. He was found dead within a week. The moderate faction, men who valued profit over pride, came to me. I was neutral, they reasoned. I was efficient. I understood the operation better than anyone after months of making Jun-woo's decisions. They offered me a position, overseer of medical operations and strategic advisor. Nothing official, nothing visible, just a voice they'd listen to because I'd been right so many times before. I accepted with appropriate reluctance. Only until things stabilize, I said. I'm not like Jun-woo. I don't want power. They believed me because I'd spent 7 months proving I could be trusted. The consolidation took 3 months. Rivals were eliminated or absorbed. The organization restructured itself around efficiency rather than fear. Product moved faster. Profits increased. The violence became more precise, less wasteful. I stayed in the background, still just medical staff and strategic consultant, but everyone knew whose assessment mattered, whose judgment was final, whose calculation decided who lived and who became expensive. 6 months after Jun Woo's death, a young man knelt before me in the same office where I'd once treated wounded criminals. He'd been caught stealing from a shipment. Small amount, first offense, scared and stupid. The lieutenants waited for my assessment. Kill him as a message or spare him as strategy? I looked at the young man's face and saw myself 7 months ago, powerless, foreign, trapped in a world that would consume him. Break his right hand, I said calmly. Controlled fracture. Enough to remind him, but not enough to prevent work. Then he pays back twice what he stole at half rate until the debt clears. After that, he earns back full status through performance. The lieutenants nodded. The young man sobbed with relief. I'd saved his life. I'd also ensured his suffering, guaranteed his continued service, and demonstrated the same calculated mercy Jun Woo had taught me. As they dragged him away, I caught my reflection in the window. The woman looking back wasn't Amanda Sarah, the Ugandan nurse who'd come to Seoul for a better life. She was something else now, something efficient, something that understood the mathematics of cruelty and the profit margins of measured violence. She was the weapon Jun Woo had created, but she was sharper than he had ever been, more patient, more thorough. Jun Woo ruled through fear. I ruled through being indispensable. Jun Woo needed to be visible. I thrived in shadows. Jun Woo trusted no one. I made everyone believe they mattered. The empire didn't end when Jun Woo died. It perfected itself, and somewhere in the part of me that remembered being human, I knew the cycle would continue. One day, someone else would learn what I'd learned. Someone else would become the weapon I'd become. One day, they'd put me in the ground the same way I put Jun Woo there. But until then, the mathematics were simple. I was efficient.